Hello everybody and welcome to Untethered Fridays. I'm Jennifer Sullivan, your host, and I am coming at you live through Facebook. So today I was thinking something that's up for me is the idea of receiving gifts. Recently, like a couple of days ago, like maybe 2 days ago, unexpectedly, someone I know who it's not someone I communicate with on the regular, offered me, not just offered, but it was just like, this is what I'm going to do for you. Now, I mean, not for you, but so it's a client really. It's the same client. Like, anyway, it's a lot. It's a long story. But I haven't spoken with this client for several months. And they are opening a bar down in Florida. And seemingly out of the blue, I got a message from him saying, hey, I want to make good on my promise to bring you down here. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. But, you didn't promise to bring me down there. And he's like, I know what I intended. This is what I want to do. You're welcome to, this is what I knew what I intended either way. These are the days that the openings are on, and you're invited to both openings. And I was like, well, okay. Like, I definitely want to do it. But I did find, while I think I accepted the gifts, probably a bit more graciously, I don't know what the word here is for, easily than I normally accept things. There still was this hesitancy, and I kind of wanted to discuss this thing that a lot of us have when we find it difficult to accept gifts or blessings or compliments or anything good for us. And there's a lot of reasons I think that people feel this way, but there's not just virtue in being a giver, right? There's a virtue in receiving gratefully. Number one, it's not healthy not to be able to receive blessings. It's just not. You go through life rejecting all the good things that come to you. Doesn't make a lot of sense. And the reasons for this are varied, but I kind of want to go into the other things that it could do, you know what I mean? Like, it's not emotionally healthy. If you don't accept gifts from people, it could harm your relationship with them. And what you're doing is really robbing the person of giving. Because I don't know about you guys, but when I give something, I'm excited about it. I'm like, oh yeah, I want this person to, I got this because I was thinking about this person and I really think they'll like it. I really hope they like it, but I don't want to put the pressure on them to like it too much if they don't. But, I get excited about giving. And if someone were like, no, thanks, it would be upsetting, and, giving itself, the act of giving is a gift that we have. The feeling we get when we give a gift, I think is a blessing. It opens our heart. It feeds our heart. It feeds our soul. And if we refuse to accept a gift or receive a compliment even, or a blessing, what we're really doing is being like, to the giver, or, to the complimenter, or to the universe who's giving us a blessing. And it's not necessarily, that's not how we think about it, but it's robbing the person of that feeling. You're saying, no, you can't have that feeling of giving. I refuse it. It can be insulting. You know what I mean? Like, what do you mean you're not going to take this gift from me? I got this gift from you. Like, I remember, not last New Year's, but I think it was the New Year's before. I bought a bunch of Indian food for my house. There was just 2 other people, and my traditional thing for New Year's Eve is I always at this point get Indian food and watch the Twilight Zone marathon. It's been my tradition for years now. And I love it. Even when I do it by myself, I enjoy it. So I bought a bunch of Indian food, and it was from the nice Indian restaurant. And I'm not rich, you know what I mean? But I bought a bunch of food, and it was a lot. For me, it was a lot of money. It was like $80. And that's a lot of money for me to spend on takeaway or delivery or whatever it is. And one of my housemates was psyched about it, but the other one was like, oh, I'm just going to get some KFC. And I was like, excuse me? Like, you're going to get KFC? I just bought all this amazing food, and you were going to... And his thing was like, and I think it was a cultural thing, but it was like, I don't want to take your food. Like, if I take your food, I'm stealing from you. And it's like, I'm offering. Like, I bought this for all of us, and now you're saying that I wasted my money, and you're not being grateful. So I know from that side of it, it's upsetting, especially if you've already spent the money. Like, just like, what the hell do you mean you're getting KFC? I just bought so it was like, and eventually he came around and he ate the food, but it was just not disturbing. It was distressing. Like, I bought this for you. You're rejecting it. And you're getting something else that's completely inferior in quality and taste. So that was insulting. And it was, my relationship with that person wasn't great. It's not that it was bad, but it wasn't like super close. So I didn't have as much compassion as I could have had. But if you refuse a gift from someone, you could be insulting them. You know what I mean? And it's like, well, what do you mean? Like, for instance, if I had refused this offer to fly me down, and it wasn't just an offer, it's like, this is what I intended to do, this is what I want to do, do you want to come down these dates? Like, which of these dates do you want to come down? And I was like, there was that part of me that was just like, I can't accept this. It's too much. And I think I would have had a harder time accepting it if it were from someone else who I didn't know that, like, this amount of money is not a big deal for them. Like, if I would have had a harder time if it were someone who I knew, like, struggled to make ends meet, or even who maybe, it wasn't wealthy. This person I know it's not a burden at all. So I feel much more comfortable receiving it. But I think what we need to think about when we feel because I remember this same client, last time I saw him, I was in Florida, and there was a mix-up with my Expedia, and they basically were like, no, you can't have your flight home, and we're not going to give you money back for it. And I was like, and it happened when I was with him, and he's just like, he whips out his phone, and he's like, boop, 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 taken care of. And he bought me a plane ticket home. And, like, that was just like, on the one hand, like, I wanted to be like, no. But on the other hand, I really, like, I didn't have a choice. Like, how else am I going to get home? I don't have the money, So I gratefully received that then. And I felt a little bit more obligation, right? Like, I felt bad about it. And it was embarrassing too. Like, okay, my client just bought me. Don't get me wrong. It was incredibly generous and thoughtful of him to do. At the same time, as someone who doesn't want to look that bad in front of her clients, like, my client had to buy my ticket home. Not the way you want to have a relationship go. But regardless, this is the same client, and he does know my financial situation. So he wanted to, honestly, like, he invited me down, and this is his way, I guess, of making sure that I'm there, which is sweet. Because it shows that he does want me there. He wouldn't have just randomly brought it up out of nowhere. But I think when we do this, sometimes we feel that we're imposing. And sometimes we feel unworthy. And I think that's a big one for a lot of people. That's certainly a big one for me, or was a big one for me. Feeling unworthy of someone's time, attention, resources, everything, right? Like, oh, I don't want to take, I don't want to take, I don't want to take, I don't want to be a burden. But the person is offering. And regardless of why they're offering, even if you think like, oh, they're just being nice, they offered. You know, like they offered. And that's my other thing too, is like, oh, they're just being nice. And like in this particular situation, he's not just being nice, because again, it was absolutely unnecessary for him to do this. It's not like we were in a situation where they're like, oh, you want to come along too? But, you know, it's like, and it doesn't matter about what I'm focusing on here is not me. That was just an introduction to this idea. So I think a lot of times we feel unworthy, and we feel like the other person's just being nice. These are stories we're telling ourselves in our head. Feeling like we're unworthy of a gift isn't being humble, it's denial. If the person is willing to give something to you, I mean, yeah, there are occasions where you're just like, this is just too much. I don't know. There are, for me, I don't know about that. And we'll see when I run up against that situation at a certain point, whenever, and I will come on here and I will discuss it. But I think when we're feeling that way, something we can do is to examine why. Right? What judgment are we making? Is it a judgment about them? Is it a judgment about me? So like I said, you could feel unworthy. You could feel that the person's just being nice, right? That's a judgment on them. You can feel like, okay, like it would be easy for me to feel like kind of needy and weak and less than, because I can't afford to go down there myself. Like it just wouldn't, I could technically buy the ticket, but it would not make any financial sense. It would be a really dumb financial move for me to make. So like, it would be easy to feel like, oh God, I feel like I felt the first time around when I'm like, oh my God, I'm needy and weak and I'm not self-sufficient, and I just felt all the inadequacies, you know, and I think that was a part of my discomfort then. And then on the other hand, a lot of times we may feel like, okay, now we're obligated to give back. But when you think about the nature of giving, really, like, I think it's important to focus on the concept of giving, because one, again, giving feels good, and you should allow the other person the opportunity to give to you, and to gratefully receive, because that feels good. But also, the nature of giving is such that even if the person's, like, it's kind of like, I kind of feel like even if they're, let's put just being nice aside, but even if, like, whatever the case, whatever their motive may be, the rules of giving and receiving are, if someone offers, you can accept and not owe anything in return, because that person offered. And if they're offering with the stipulation in mind, or the thought in mind that they're going to get something back, so they kind of deserve for you to just take what it is they offered and not to have it given back, right? Like, the beauty of giving is the giving. And there's also there's always the feeling of reciprocity. That's like a rule in most humans' nature, is when someone gives, you don't necessarily feel obligated, but when you have the opportunity, you want to give back, to show gratitude. But you can show gratitude just by being grateful, and thanking the person. What else was I going to say? I think it's important to when I learned to love myself more, and I have, and thank God, things like this have become easier. I'm able to receive feeling worthy. And it's still hard for me to say, because I was about to say kind of feeling somewhat more worthy, but no, feeling worthy. Because I am, and you are. And I just wanted to bring that up for anybody out there who may have the same issue, because I think a lot of people have trouble receiving, especially, I don't know if it's this culture or whatever, but there's the emphasis on being self-sufficient, etc., etc. I think I've said pretty much every point that I want to make, so I'm going to end it there. But I was going to remind you guys that it's always important to gratefully receive whatever it is that has been given, because you're refusing the universe. You're basically sticking your fingers up, like to the person or the being giving you the blessing. So I'm going to encourage you guys all to, the next time someone offers you something, to accept it without feeling guilty or embarrassed or like you're obligated, and with the heart knowing that, like a grateful heart, knowing that the person who's giving it to you receives the blessing as well of giving. So I'm going to remind you guys all to always be grateful, and that it is a choice. So I'm going to remind you, as I always do, that you can always choose to have a great full day.